We are back, baby. After a whole year of not uploading anything, we moved, we finally got proper internet, and we moved to the Big Apple New Year. Wait, what's that? A big bean? Sorry guys, I was just notified that we're not in fact in New York, but rather Chicago, known for having a big metal bean downtown. So, anyway. Nanda. So anyway, after a whole year of not uploading anything to the channel, I realized that I wanted to start off by talking about subjects that I'm actually very familiarized with. And weirdly enough, my spouse and I began rewatching How I Met Your Mother at the same time. A show that I rewatched around 8 times at this point. A show that by all means I would consider legend. Wait for it. Now, I wouldn't blame you for not knowing what this channel is about. Not only do I have a really small number of subscribers, but truth be told, I've been lost about this channel for about a year or so at this point. I've done videos about Dig Wolf, I've done videos about intros, Naruto's, birthdays, Diogenes, etc, etc, etc. And that goes without mentioning all the streaming stuff as well. Matter of fact, the last video that I was working on was actually a gaming video, but I had to cancel it halfway through because I realized that I was going way over my head with the editing. Mind you, halfway through it took me 6 months to edit. So at one point I realized, maybe I shouldn't do this to myself. So after I finally moved to the Big Apple, Chicago, not New York, I decided that I want to have a list of videos that I can record, edit, and upload in a realistic timeline without burning myself out or without going way over the head with the editing skills, because I know that I can edit videos, I just don't edit videos the way I want them to. Does that make sense? Now, I cannot remember exactly when I began watching How I Met Your Mother, but I remember it being during my college years, if I'm correct. And it quickly became one of my favorite shows of all time. For like a month, because then I watched the ending and needless to say, it left a bittersweet taste in my mouth. Now, I want to make it clear, there will be spoilers in this video. Why? Because anyone watching a video about How I Met Your Mother 10 years after the show ended must know what the ending is. And if not, then I'm sorry, I guess. I also want to make it clear that just like any other video on YouTube talking about sitcoms, I will shit on the Big Bang Theory at one point or another. So, fair warning. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm part of the crowd that believes that the ending of How I Met Your Mother is one of the most disappointing endings to a TV show that I watched in recent time. It's not like I don't have an open mind, which I admittedly don't. But I watched many videos arguing for the ending, and no matter what points they touch on or what the main argument of the video was, they just never did it for me. The lead up to the reveal of who the mother is so perfectly crafted that the worst thing about the whole ending, when you take into consideration the whole ending season, is that it totally pays off. Kristen Milioti is somehow able to live to the expectations that have been building up for 8 seasons. She is, by all means, the perfect partner for Ted, but also the perfect partner for an audience that has been waiting for her for 8 years at that. Or in my case, about a month. Because all the seasons were out already, and who needs to pay attention to college classes, am I right? The mom was so universally accepted and beloved that it really felt like it was going to become my favorite sitcom of all time. And then they just kill her off for some reason, and the show never left the realm of just an okay sitcom in my head for many years to come. And yeah, person typing that comment about how the ending was planned from season 1, let me stop you right there. I don't care. Get out. Nobody likes you, dude. I would have preferred the mom to be a complete miscast that nobody liked, so then the ending felt a little bit more fitting. Almost as if hating the ending would have been justified as an audience member. You've been waiting for the mom for 8 seasons. She shows up. You hate her. And then when the show ultimately gets rid of her, it doesn't feel like that big of a letdown. But before we get to talk about the ending and how none of it makes sense, let me talk to you about today's sponsor. Raid Shadow Legend. Wait, what's that? There's no sponsor for this video? No, but really, before we get to talk about the ending, let me tell you that personally speaking, I believe that How I Met Your Mother is one of the most elaborate sitcoms that I've watched in recent times. The storytelling, the complexity of the jokes, the character development, and the memes. Oh dear God, the memes. I don't know if some of you remember, which I'm guessing most of you do, but there was a time during the early 2010s where Barney Stinson was everywhere. Hell, for quite many years, my middle name on Facebook was, wait for it, due to Season 7, Episode 23, Magician's Code Part 1. Where one of the jokes of the episode is how the middle name, wait for it, is the coolest middle name of all time. Which I literally changed to Buttlicker. If you know, you know. Yet, somehow until the last rewatching marathon that Alex and I went through, it always felt like those amazing details of the show were somehow stained by the ending. Almost as if once you know where everything leads to, none of it matters anymore. And since a lot of the weight of the show comes from the tie between the gang, Ted's love quest, and the audience, then what's the point anymore? I know some of you might be wondering,
hey man, you watched the series 8 times. What's all this talk about you not liking the show, huh?
And to that I say, let me explain a little bit. During my initial 7 runs to the show, which happened back to back, I only ever watched the ending that very first time. I just couldn't do that to myself. And somehow knowing that I could skip the ending all along and just watch the series from zero all over again made it a little bit less painful and a little bit more enjoyable. Yet, it was never as amazing as that first run of the show. Now we're finally here in 2023, and Alex and I thought that it was a good idea to watch the first episode of the series while not finding anything else to watch when eating dinner. And we just couldn't stop watching. It was during that run of the show that I began noticing a few details. And I couldn't help but notice that all of these little details and Easter eggs I was only able to see now because I am the same age that the characters are at the beginning of the show. First of all, I know this is a sitcom. Therefore, I understand that the main goal of the show is still to make people laugh. I'm not saying it took me 8 runs of the show to understand or notice the jokes. Huh. Now wait a minute. That never happened before. Like how some of these take place in earlier seasons of the show, and they somehow find ways to extend them all the way to the ending of the show. And it's not in the annoying keep telling the same joke over and over until it runs dry type of way, but rather in like a let's make a great joke and just sprinkle it over seasons here and there. A very popular example of this comes from season 2, episode 9, Slap It, where Barney makes a slap it with Marshall about whether or not what Robin is hiding from the gang is that she used to be an adult actress. Long story short, Barney prematurely slaps Marshall thinking he won, and so Lily, as a slap it commissioner, decides to give him a choice, either getting slapped 10 times in a row right there and then, or 5 slaps that Marshall can use at any time under any circumstances from that moment into eternity. This is a joke that literally runs into the second to last episode of the show. And although the first 3 slaps are considerably way funnier than the last 2, arguably the 4th slap comes in the form of one of the worst episodes of the series, I still find it amusing that they never let that joke die. One of my personal favorites is the Swirly joke from season 2, episode 7, where Rebecca accidentally writes Barney's name as Swirly on his cup of coffee, and this leads to a barrage of bullying towards Barney, leading up to one of my favorite scenes on the show.
Say it.
Why? You guys know what it is.
Say the name.
No, I don't want to. I hate it. I hate it. It's not funny. It's never been funny. I've never done any. No!
You completely forgot about the joke for 7 seasons, and then all of a sudden,
Dude, settle down, Swarley. Yeah, Swarley's stay around, take it easy.
Man, this is supposed to be my special day.
granted, this particular joke is only ever brought back once. But just like these two, there are dozens of jokes that keep coming back throughout the series. Eating a sandwich, how Barney is unable to take a bad picture, the doppelgangers, the bro code, the playbook, interventions, etc, etc. And that goes without saying how clever and relatable some of these jokes are. I don't know about you, but I can confidently say that as someone who has been to school the majority of his life, I still second guess myself when writing the word professor for some reason. So every single run of the show, without a miss, when I reach this particular scene...
Wait. Does Professor have one F or two? Oh my god. Oh my god. Professor. Professor. They're all staring at me. Professor. I don't know. Just do something. 2 F's. That looks right. I think that's right.
I completely lose it. The majority of the jokes in the show are not only funny, but also very clever, and they hit you in ways that you didn't expect. Of course, just like any show, it comes with a good amount of punny jokes, corny jokes, or over-the-top jokes. But I can't think of a single episode that didn't include a surprisingly clever and unexpectedly hilarious joke. Now, I could go on and on and on and on and on about this, but I also really want to talk about I don't think that sitcoms having life lessons is anything groundbreaking. My favorite comedy series of all time, The Office, is full of them. Friends, Seinfeld, That 70s Show, New Girl, all of them, except maybe Two Broke Girls and The Big Bang Theory. How I Met Your Mother, though, does it differently, in my very subjective opinion. This show has some of the most unexpected life lessons I've seen in any sitcom over the past 5 years or so, and the most common brought up episode when talking about this subject is Season 8, Episode 20, The Time Travelers, which, if you have not seen this series, and this episode in particular, I do not want to spoil it at all, but let me tell you, if you're in a point of your life where you feel like you're being left behind, this episode is gonna hit you right in the gut. So hard, in fact, that you'll shit yourself. Okay, maybe not that hard, but you get the point. A personal favorite of mine comes from Season 9, Episode 15, where Marshall takes the job position without telling Lily, even though they already agreed upon moving to Italy for a year. During my initial 7 runs of the show, I remember that I would always agree with Marshall when she brought out the fact that she broke up with them to move to San Francisco when they're having their little argument about being selfish to one another. How Marshall finally brings out all this massive and hidden pain and how it's made him feel all these years always felt like justified in me, and for what I can tell, for a lot of other people too. However, one little detail that always went unnoticed until now, that I am 27 years old, that I live with my partner, and I promise those 2 details are important and relevant to this, was this one.
I mean, I am sitting right here.
Dad, yes, obviously losing you was way worse, but I'm trying to make a bigger point here.
And what point is that? Because she hurt you once, you now get to hurt her? It's not how it works in a marriage.
For what I can tell, it took me several years of life experiences, of relationships, and pain, but after all that, I can finally understand what Marvin Erickson meant by those very short but yet very effective lines. What good is it for to spend the rest of your life with someone if you're gonna keep score in the relationship? What use is it for anyone to hold deep resentment to someone who is supposed to be your teammate for life? I personally remember doing this in previous relationships and how this resentment will not only affect my girlfriend, but ultimately me, my mental health, my emotional stability, and the outlook that I had in my relationship, but also the outlook that I had on life. These 2 life lessons are just 2 out of dozens that the show has to offer to the audience. One thing also that I did not notice until recently for whatever reason is that the running joke of each episode is almost always tied to the life lesson that the episode wants to leave for the audience. And this is what I was referring to earlier when I said that How I Met Your Mother is one of the most elaborate sitcoms that I watched in recent times, because I believe that the show grows with you. And in my particular case, I feel like I watched the show in very specific parts of my life where now I'm able to enjoy it in a completely new and different light. A light that doesn't take away the things that I enjoy the first time around, but rather complements it in a very unique way. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m., Rabbit and the Duck Theory, Graduation Goggles, The Chain of Screaming, The Overcorrection Theory. These are all very dominant jokes in the series, but that at one point or the other, I stopped and thought, that is oddly relatable. But of course, none of the jokes or life lessons in the series would have the same impact they have if it wasn't for a very subtle yet tremendously important thing called... Now, before I get into anything character related, I just want to say, I'm not a screenwriter, I'm not an English major, really, I'm not anything even closely or remotely related to writing a character and everything that entails. So, if I sound like a major idiot and you want to roast me in the comments during this section, let me just tell you, please go easy on me. It's been a couple of rough months. Help me. Help me understand. What is going on in this world? Why is everything going to shit? Did God really abandon us? I also want to make it clear that I don't hate any of the actors that played these characters. I'm just talking about fictitious characters and their fictitious personalities. Nothing else. Years ago, when I was first binge watching the series over and over and over and over, if anyone were to ask me to put the gang in a tier list from best to worst towards the end of the series, it would probably have been something like Ted, then Barney, then Marshall, then Robin, then Lily. However, many years have gone by. I lived through so many different experiences as an individual, as a son, as a brother, as a partner, as a friend, that towards the end of the last run of the show, my list would probably be almost entirely flipped, looking something like Marshall, then Barney, then Lily, then Ted, then Robin. Yeah, Robin doesn't really do well in any of my imaginary lists, but let's go one by one. Marshall has always been a character that I always really like, but the only reason why he was scaled right in the middle of my first list was that the show and the audience is so hyper focused on Ted's love quest and Barney's like over the top jokes during the first run that you are really not able to see how great of a person Marshall really is. He is a great son, a great father, a great boyfriend and husband, and although he works for evil corporations from time to time, his morals always seem to shine through. He's constantly looking for new ways to work for a better environment without letting Lily and his future family down. And honestly, as someone who's gone from job to job to job to job and still has dreams and aspirations, you understand how hard that is. And even though an evil Marshall arc would have been completely justified when Lily first comes back from San Francisco, that just never happens. Marshall finds himself unable to do anything that would remotely hurt Lily in any type of way. I generally don't remember a single instance where as an audience member I felt disappointed of Marshall. Even that scene that I already mentioned where like Marshall brings up the fact that she moved to San Francisco and all that. Within a day, she's already apologizing and admitting how wrong he was. Marshall takes my number one spot because even though his character development isn't a 180-degree change, his character development is focused more on the fact that he's very true to himself and he's always trying to improve his life, himself, and the lives of those around him. Not to mention that I believe that Marshall has some of the best jokes in the show, and it also really doesn't help that one of my best friends is like a one-to-one recreation of Marshall, personality-wise that is. Talking about Barney Stinson is a very tricky subject, especially when I just talked about how much I like Marshall's morals, and when you take into consideration scenes like this one.
And I have done some horrible things. I mean, at one point, I'm pretty sure I sold a woman.
But anyway, this is my list, and it all makes sense in my head for some reason. He lies, manipulates, steals, he's perverted and selfish, and that goes without mentioning the possible human trafficking case. And yet he still ends up being one of the most likable characters of the whole series. And that is precisely because Barney's character development is a completely 180 from how he began. Until the literally goddamn last episode. Oh my god. Setting aside all the immoral and illegal stuff that Barney takes part of, and I'm doing this because of a little detail regarding Ted. As the series goes on, Barney slowly but surely grows out of his old ways. He gives some of the best advice to all members of the gang and acts on the best interests of his friends even if they're not aware of it. And even his taking part of an evil mega corporation is justified. The strongest part of his development though definitely comes from within. Brendan is an individual who grew up without a father, with somewhat of a distant mother, no friends, and who got cheated on and left behind. Barney definitely has the most turmoil to work with, and it is this emotional trauma and pain that ultimately helps Barney grow the most. Barney talks to and understands the reason why his mother did the things that she did when he was a kid. He faces his father and calls him out in one of the most emotional scenes in the series, only to later forgive him and accept him into his life. And there's more. He searches for Lily when she moves to San Francisco. He lets Lily stay with him when she has no place to live. He gets Marshall a job. He gets Ted a job. He reaches out to Ted prior to asking Robin out and even before proposing to her. He runs to Ted's company after his accident even though he's trying to get rid of him as a friend. He gives Robin a perfect date. He comes clean with Nora after cheating on her with Robin. He's always focusing on showing his friends that you're never too old to have an awesome date, and much more. I remember telling Alex during several episodes of this last run, damn, Barney's such a good friend. This clearly broken individual is way more self-aware than anyone gives him credit for. And even in this deep state of emotional trauma, he's always willing to go above and beyond for his friends. So far as to call him the most important part of his life. Hell, one of my favorite quotes from any sitcom ever comes from Barney. Nothing you do in this life is legendary.
Unless your friends are there to see it.
Barney takes my number 2 spot because unlike any other character in the show, he actually grows and develops. Unlike Lily is definitely not the easiest character to talk about, at least for me, because for many years I just couldn't put into words what part of her character rubbed me the wrong way. until recently. I finally understood that there's 3 reasons why I don't love Lily all the time. And although there might be more spread out in like episodes here and there, I feel like these 3 stand out to me the most. First is manipulation, second one is selfishness, and third one is what I can only really describe as a strong pick-me girl attitude. Let me explain. Lily does show some kind of character development throughout the series. She becomes a mom, she forgives his dad, and then I think that's it. Don't get me wrong, Lily comes across as someone who is supposed to bring order to the chaos that is the life of the rest of the gang. Otherwise, if you give Lily a bunch of shit to deal with, then it will be too much for the entirety of the show. However, aside from those 2 things that I already mentioned, Lily isn't someone who actually grows out of her old ways. She doesn't really develop herself. She doesn't really develop those around her, or at least not in a fulfilling way. She is constantly, and I mean constantly, manipulating the lives and relationships of the main cast at the very least. And in the case of Ted, she only ever seems to be into the girls that she believes will fit her ideal scenario, not really what Ted is looking for, or if anyone is actually good for Ted. She is selfish enough, and I think this is one of the main reasons why Lily is hated, to try to leave Marshall at least on 3 times, 3 different occasions. And granted, that last one is not really kind of like a breakup or even her leaving. It's more of a, she just kind of stormed off, which, and I already said that Marshall said that it was his fault too, so let's just say that it's 2 then, right? That's what I said. But the other 2 are just completely for the sake of frustration and desperation, basically. Now, the first one is the one that we already know, right? The one that kind of stained Lily's reputation for the remainder of the series, not just for Marshall, but for the audience. At least that's what I get from what I can read on online forums and stuff. Now, I'm not going to say that there's a limit as to when you should stop following your dreams. I definitely don't believe that there should be any age, or whether you're married or not, or situation that should prevent you from following what you really want to do with your life. However, dreamy. However, Lily does it in a very weird way. The first instance, she just makes the decision without even talking to Marshall about it. She just says, you know what, I'm leaving. I know that we're engaged. I don't care. I need to do this. And so she books it, and that's pretty much all we know. Now, I know Marshall was pretty set on Lily not moving out, but do you guys really believe that if Lily were to ask Marshall for a solution, he couldn't have worked out like a middle ground for both of them? The second time, which admittedly was not a breakup, but rather just like a desperate escape, is when Lily and Ted go out to pick up whoever guy from Marshall's job at the airport, right? And then when they get there, it turns out that, oh, Lily bought a fucking... Sorry, I don't want to curse too much on this video. So Lily just buys a freaking plane ticket to go to Spain for an indefinite amount of time. Why? Because she doesn't communicate with Marshall about how she feels. Again, both of these instances just come across to me as situations that could have been easily prevented if Lily just kind of talked with who we know is one of the greatest guys on the show. But instead, she just makes decisions left and right without really consulting or thinking about it. And so, I don't know, is that really how you do things like that in a committed relationship? I don't know. Lastly, and this may be just me, but Lily often comes across as someone who is just so desperate to be seen as a perfect couple, even though as an audience member, you know that they're clearly not that. It's like Lily always finds a way to relate every couple conversation back to her and Marshall for the sake of showing that they are better than whoever they're talking to or talking about. And honestly, who likes people like that? I just want to make it clear, Lily is still standing on my good side. I do like her character. I think she's nice. I think she's very caring. I think she's very loving. I think she pulls the ears of pretty much the whole gang at one point or another. However, for those reasons, I often find myself to be annoyed by Lily as well. So, I don't know. I think a 3 is fair. Ah, yes. The man of the hour. The hero of the journey. The shit stain on the toilet. Ted. Now, I can make an entire video on the pros and cons of Ted and how his character has been kind of moving left and right for me. Sometimes I love him, sometimes I hate him, sometimes I understand him, sometimes I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with you, dude? But this video is already pretty long, so let me try to summarize this real quick. Ted used to be my favorite character of the show the first 1 or 2 runs of the show that I ever watched. And this was mainly because, well, Ted is the main character. So everything that he does is kind of seen through like a lighthearted comedic tone. He's never really been seen as the enemy. He's never really been seen as the bad guy or even as someone who is acting selfishly. He's just a sappy little guy who's telling his kids the fun story of how he ended up meeting their mother and the struggles and heartbreak he had to go through, etc, etc, etc. But then 2 things happened that completely changed the way I look at Ted. Number 1, I rewatched the series a sickening amount of times. And the second one is actually a Reddit Q&A from the How I Met Your Mother subreddit, in which Carter Bays, the co-creator of How I Met Your Mother, actually tells the audience that Ted is an incredibly unreliable narrator. Now, I know this whole unreliable narrator thing isn't really something new. I know this theory has been out since pretty much the show ended, but when the co-creator of the show openly says stuff like that, it's like it automatically becomes canon in my head. Now, I'm not going to make a small section here like that, the take video about how Ted is actually the super villain of the show and all that, because that would be ridiculous. However, I will say that the more you watch the show and the more you actually think about what Ted is doing and how he treats women, the more you realize that he's just very, very selfish and a bit of a crybaby. Over the 9 seasons of How I Met Your Mother, Ted is seen or have shown to be dating / seriously dating / engaged / spending a night together / something with around 80 women. Out of those, Ted actually dates 17 of them. Now, let's look at how some of those relationships ended up, shall we? He breaks up with Natalie during her birthday twice, just because she was not the one, a concept that Ted utilizes extremely loosely, may I add. He breaks up with Kathy because she talks too much, a thing that he wasn't even aware of until his friends mentioned it to him. He breaks up with Royce because of her baggage. And this one is especially weird to me because this whole episode is just Ted basically coming to terms with the fact that the one in the relationship that has the most baggage or luggage or whatever you want to call it is him. But also him basically coming to terms with the fact that, you know what, this is my luggage or baggage or whatever. So I want to let you know that I have this because it's only fair that you know about this. But once Royce does the exact same thing with him, we only have like a small little short scene towards the end in which Ted basically tells her, yeah, get the fuck out. He breaks up with Becky because of her childish behavior, which mind you was a thing that Ted liked about her to begin with. And just like these women, there's tons of women that he just kind of dates on a whim for apparently no reason. Either he's feeling lonely or he's feeling desperate or he's feeling like he found the one over and over and over again. Not to mention the times that he's cheated, the times that he kissed someone who was married, the times that he's dating someone who has a questionable age, or just straight up made the girl feel like crap, like in the pineapple episode. And that's not all. Ted is shown to have a borderline, or maybe not even borderline, maybe this was just a straight obsession with Robin throughout the entirety of the show. No matter how straight up she is with them, no matter how many girls he dates or how many men she dates, no matter if she's dating or engaged to his best friend, he literally is planning on crashing his best friend's wedding at one point of the series. And on the topic of said best friend, remember the time that Barney got Ted his literally dream job and Ted threw that project away multiple times for the sake of a girl whom everyone knew he had no future? Or the time that Ted literally wanted nothing to do with Barney and after his car accident, the first thing that Barney does is start running towards the hospital? Yeah, it's just a bit weird to me. It's like this, I'm not trying to hate on Ted because I know that that's kind of overdone at this point. And I know that Barney has done some awful shit too. But it's like this last run of the show, I just began noticing how much of a shallow person Ted eventually starts becoming, like around season 2 or 3. And how he always seems to be justify this by saying that he's doing it for love, or he's doing it because he found the one, or he's doing it because, you know, he has the right reasons and all this. And then on the other hand, you have Barney, a character that never denies what he's doing. He's very aware of what he's doing. He never says that he's a good person. He never justifies what he's doing. And whenever he's facing consequences, he knows that he's facing consequences for a reason. Ted, on the other hand, is just a guy that basically says, oh, I'm doing it because I know I'm looking for love. I'm just in my search for love, blah, blah, blah. And then expects no consequences at all. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Robin has always been my least favorite character. She definitely comes across as an entirely different character during the first 2 seasons of the show. But then it's like a switch flips and she suddenly starts becoming a female version of Barney with no emotional depth. I know that she's shown to have her own little baggage with the issues that she has with her dad in the past. but they never really explore those scenarios. And when they do, they just seem so over the top and extreme and far-fetched that they're not really relatable at all. Not only this, but Robin it's kind of an awful character. I don't know how to say this. She leads Ted on several times, sometimes while she's dating or engaged to one of his friends. She basically tells Ted that he shouldn't marry Stella during his wedding, which, granted, not the worst thing that Ted could have probably done. She dates her therapist, which then she proceeds to cheat on, then lie by omission to him, and then to Barney when she makes it clear that she chose Kevin over Barney. She couldn't stand Barney finally being happy with Quinn, or Nora, or Patrice. He had the insatiable need to break them up somehow. Even then, when she finally marries Barney, it is shown that she's the one that is not really willing to give the relationship any time. It's always about job. It's always about her. So, is Barney really at fault once again? I don't know. Not only that, but once they divorce, she's the one mopping over the fact that she should be with Ted. She treats Patrice like trash, although admittedly she's way nicer to her than she deserves. She's the one that leaves the group often, even though all of them are constantly chasing her to be part of the gang again. Heck, she's a massive dick to Lily in that last episode, in the last Halloween party. I get that she's on her own now, and like career won over personal life. She chose her job. She chose, to develop herself and her career and all these things. But this is one of the people that love you the most in your life, that cares about you the most, crying to you that they miss you, that they want to see you more, that they practically want to see you happier because they know that you're being kind of miserable. And then Robin just kind of shits on that. She makes one of her coworkers do her laundry, for God's sake. And just for the sake of making it clear, because I feel like I made the Robin section a little short because I generally don't have a lot of things to say about Robin. It's like this. Marshall is a guy that is a good guy. He tries to be a great guy, and that's why he's my number one. Barney is an awful guy that eventually becomes a pretty good guy. Lily is a person that is just kind of mid and just stays mid during the whole season. And then she does some awful stuff, but then she kind of redeems herself, so she stays mid. Ted is just below aggressively average awful person, and he just kind of like stays there. But since he's the main character, he kind of like bumps a level too in the first few runs that you watch the show, and then he kind of stays there. But the more you watch it, the more he turns back to being this awful person. And Robin is just weird because realistically, she starts off the show as just an everyday girl who is like kind of cool, kind of nice. But then once they flip that switch, it's like she just becomes a dick every single episode for the majority of episodes, and she never does any redeemable things to fix the mistakes that she makes in the past. You can tell that the writers want her character to be somewhat relatable because of the problems that she has. But again, I don't think that they ever made the right decisions as to how do they portray Robin as a realistic person. She's just extremes everywhere, basically. There are a lot of shows that you could talk about without the need to talk about their ending to get the point across. How I Met Your Mother, though, is not one of them. A lot has been said about the ending since it first aired in 2014, and I'm willing to bet that more will be said as the years continue to go on. So take this as what it is. Just some dude putting his own very biased, subjective opinion on the internet that will probably be dead 40 years from now. I believe that How I Met Your Mother's ending held the series back from being one of the best sitcoms of recent times, because it just didn't feel like it made a lot of sense, honestly. First of all, the entirety of season 9, which is 24 episodes, cover a single weekend. During these 24 episodes, not only are we supposed to keep up with Barney's and Robin's wedding, but also what's going to happen to the gang and what happens to the gang right after the wedding, while also adding comedic bits, tying loose ends, and also receiving a crash course on who the mother is. Literally everything that took 8 seasons to learn about Ted is now summarized in less than a season for the mom. And she still lived up to the hype just to kill her. This makes it so the last season of How I Met Your Mother feels so rushed and out of place for so many things, but especially the last 3 episodes or so. Marshall takes a job, has all kinds of delays to get to the wedding, then fights Lily, then wait, I guess not anymore because she's pregnant. Then he finally stabs Barney, then they go to Italy, and now look, they're back and they're getting rid of the apartment. Lily meets the mom, then fights Marshall, then leaves Marshall. Wait, no, she's just pregnant and wanted to hide it. And can't leave Robin alone about not freaking out. And Linus is everywhere with this joke that definitely did not run its course within the first episode. And now they're in Italy with baby number 2, and now they're back. Barney and Robin may be cousins, except they're not. And now they both maybe not getting married, except they are, except they get a divorce, and now Barney is a dad, and Robin is just gone, except she's not. Or maybe she is. No, wait, no, she's back. She's back and better than ever, but a awful wig, I guess. Oh, hey, Ted is also here. And he went to LA for the locket to ruin the wedding. Then he got it from Germany from Victoria, only to get it from the river, only to finally let go of Robin in that weird hallucination sequence. But did he actually let go of Robin? Oh, and he is moving to Chicago, but apparently he just cancels everything last minute, and now everything is different, and now we're finally here with the mom, who we now know everything about, but now she's just dead from something severe, I am sure. And now the story is over, and that's how I met your mother. But can I please date Aunt Robin? Hell yeah. So many things that I feel I should have really cared about as an audience member are just kind of gone from one moment to another without any warnings or heads ups or even the proper amount of time to kind of say goodbye to any of them. The apartment, Lily's pregnancy, Marshall and Lily finally going to Italy, Barney and Robin finally getting married, Robin's mom finally showing up, James' divorce, the last slap, Barney's and Robin's divorce, Barney becoming a dad, Ted finally getting married, having kids, the mom's death. But hey, at least we got an episode on Gary Blauman, am I right? In conclusion, and because I really need to wrap this video up, I titled this video How I Met Your Mother as a Confusing Show, because I can't stop watching it. I laugh at every joke. I think the humor is great and relatable. The show beats the test of time. The characters show development in their own unique ways. It has a very unique way of telling a very repeated premise. Yet I could never say that it is my favorite sitcom of all time. Because although it sticks the landing, it fumbles right after. And the whole routine just kind of falls short as a result. And so at the end, the show falls just short from actually becoming a legendary show. Thanks for watching. That's it.